Okay, so one of the things I always do, even now, but when I started coding, I was very eager, like to finish my assignments. So I would just start like coding and I write like 10, 15 lines of code and then I try to compile my program and well, it wouldn't work. Like it would have errors and I had to go through the headache of trying to find how to solve those errors, right? And it can be very frustrating. So let me. So what I started doing back then is, and I still do it now. I would just write like a few lines of code. Maybe for beginners, I say at the most 3 lines of code. So you write 3 lines of code, and then you check your program for errors. I know that might seem like overkill, but to compile your program, meaning like you check your program, the compiler or C++ checks your program for syntax errors, might take not even 1 second. But if you don't do that, then you're gonna get it into errors, and you have like maybe 15 lines of code, and then you're like, it could be in any one of those 15 lines. However, if you're doing 2 or 3 lines and you compile and your program crashes or doesn't run, then you're like, it's one of those 3 lines that you wrote has the issue. So let me explain. Let me show with some examples here. And one of the things that happens when you get frustrated, you'll give up. Like eventually you'll give up. You think I suck. I'm not a good teacher, whatever, right? But take my tips. They'll help you, right? Like 2, 3 lines of code. Check your program for errors, and then go on to the next 3 lines of code. So let me go here and open my code space, and I'll just open some program, maybe some examples that I've been working with, and I'll purposely make errors, but then I'll show you how you can look at the log to fix those errors. And the most common one might be initially like semicolon, right? You forget a semicolon. And usually the error log, it tries its best to like tell you where the error is. You just kind of have to decipher all that garbage that it spits out. So let me wait for it. For example, we were working on these examples last week, right? So we can use this one. So I'll purposely like make them produce errors. So let me see here. We go to CMake. Let it come up, and this is SRC examples, and we're dealing with repetition. No, conditionals. Okay, and I guess we're on the switch, so let's go with switch. And so we go here, and that one's okay. Maybe we come here, and I'm just gonna purposely omit that, right? And I mean, it's warning us already that there's some issue, and it's telling us here that there's some issue. But sometimes, like, we're just focused on the code that we just ignore that stuff. So what I'm saying is, go here to the library. The library will only check the .h and the CPP. It will not check anything else. So your bet is, okay, I'm gonna work with these 2 files, which is where you start off anyway. And then you build. When you build, it's gonna check your program for errors. And notice right here, like there's an error. And it's pretty good at telling you more or less where the error is, right? So it's saying switch.cpp around line 21. Maybe like you're missing a semicolon. So you go to line 21, and in this case, like it's there, right? We can fix the error. So then we go here and we build, and it fixes the error, right? So maybe we go here, and let's pretend we forgot that, and then we're trying to build, and then we build, And then again, notice like it's telling you like it spits out a lot of stuff, right? So it can be kind of like, hey, wait a minute, what does all this stuff mean? But if you just scroll down enough and look for the error description, it's not always like this easy to find, right? But if you scroll down and just kind of focus and be, okay, somewhere it's going to tell me what my issue is. So here it's telling you there's an error, right? And it's probably switch.cpp 3618. So you're like, oh, okay, right here. And then you come back here and you build. Okay, another common error I see is students, they put a semicolon on the CPP function header right here. So then again, that'll produce an error because we do not need a semicolon there. The only thing here is that it's not that obvious, like what the error is, right? So you'll see this and it's just kind of telling you that expected unqualified AD before. It's kind of like, well, I don't know what that means, right? But I mean, it should probably tell us that the semicolon doesn't go there, right? But it's just telling you that it's expecting a curly brace, open curly brace, and not a semicolon. Okay, so once you remove it, then it should be able to run. Another common error I see in assignments is sometimes students forget the semicolon here, and then they try to build, and again, like it spits out a lot of garbage. This is called like the stack trace, right? But then here it's kind of like trying to tell you like expected initializer before using it's kind of like, what? String does not name a type. Did you mean so here this is like a very misleading error, right? But what it's trying to tell us is that there's something wrong here. And if you just go to that file, it's saying around line 13.1, right? So then you're like, what, 13.1? Or maybe this one 4.1. So around 4.1, there's nothing here. And then you look at this, and I guarantee you, sometimes you might be staring at this for 5 minutes, and you're like, there's nothing wrong here. But just remember that always in the header file, remember this is a function prototype, signature, or header. You always need a semicolon here. So then once you do that, then you're good. Another common error I see is the header here does not match the header in the CPP. So the name has to match, the return value has to match, and the parameter type has to match. The name does not have to match, like num doesn't have to match, okay? That doesn't have to match. But sometimes, like if you're not careful, like you might do this and then, you know, for some reason you go grab coffee or whatever, drink, and then you come back and then you don't notice that this is int and this is double. So then when you try to build, then it seems like okay, right? It's kind of like okay. So then if you try to run in terminal, then it's kind of like gives you some error, right? So this here is like it's known as a runtime error. Like the error happens when C++ is trying to run the program, right? Not at the syntax error check. But if we go and look through the errors, then in function main, this is the key right here. Whenever you see undefined reference to some function, it means that the header in the H and the header in the CPP file, they don't match, right? So then you can come here and just look at that and look at the CPP, and like sometimes your eyes can fool you, right? So what I always recommend students do is just copy and paste and compare it, because sometimes it might be like you might do like like I don't know, you were in a hurry and maybe it could be like menu with two U's, right? But like your eyes might not see it. But if you come here and then you're like, oh, they don't match, right? So this double should be int. So then you can delete that, and then you can come back to this piece here, and then come back. And again, the library should build, but we saw that that was not the issue. The issue is like when trying to run main. So you make sure you can run main. When you try to run main, it's trying to build an executable, a program that can run for you. And that's when we're getting the error. So here you can do a build first and then you can run. Or you can run. The run does build before run in terminal. So once you run, then it should be able to run successfully. So it's building. And it's still going. And I'm not sure what the options were here. Okay, but it ran, right? So, okay. Another common issue that sometimes I see is in the header. Instead of that, students do this, and then when you try to get through it, then you're gonna get like some weird errors, right? Okay, so return statement. So maybe students are in a hurry, and here they might do like return, I don't know, like maybe they did define the code here. Return as, like they define the function here, and then they define the function in the CPP. So this is, let me put it the right way. So see, you have the function code here with the header, and then you have the same the same function in here. So I mean, right now it looks obvious because I'm like making them blow up on purpose. But if you're learning and you're kind of like, well, I think he said to do this and then like to do that, and then you like get this weird error, right? And it's kind of like, what? So here's like redefinition of, so if you see redefinition of something, that means that in two different files, or maybe in the same file, you wrote code for the function 2 times, right? So then you have to go, and luckily we don't write a lot of code in this class. It's mainly like building blocks fundamentals. You're like, okay, I define this here, CPP. Yep, I define code here. Oh, in the header I shouldn't define stuff. I should just put the function header or signature, and then I can do that. And then when you build, then that should be okay. Okay, let me go here and try to produce this error. Okay, so no error, and then let me try to run it. So run in terminal. It's building. And we didn't get an issue, right? So that's strange. Let me see here. That's not what I was trying to produce. So that's strange. That, in my opinion, shouldn't compile, right? I was trying to reproduce an error that's multiple definition of string menu. Let me try to put it here. See what happens. Run in terminal. And looks like this one's going to work too. it worked too. Okay, so I'm gonna have to research that one to produce a better example. Okay, never mind that one. And in main, sometimes, so the rule in C++ is you always need at least one main function. I purposely deleted it. Okay, all the examples that I provided for you have a main function, right? So if I open anyone, let me do this one, do while. There's a main. It doesn't do anything, but there's a main function. That's the entry point to our program. So if we remove it and then you try to run it, it's building. Or maybe it already errored out. Let me scroll down. Yeah, it errored out. Okay. So again, notice like you kind of get a lot of output, but you just have to scroll through and then hopefully you look at something that maybe tells you that there's an error. And there's like a lot of garbage here, right? Let me see. Can you do a search? Error. Yeah, so you search for error, then it's right here, and then it's saying return one exit status right here. Undefined reference to main. So if you see that issue, undefined reference to main, that means that your main program does not have the main function, right? So I put it back, and even if I take this piece out, what's inside the function, it'll still it'll run now, but it's not doing anything. It's just a program that just loads and exits real quick. So let me run this one. So notice like now there's no errors. So if I bring back this code, now it should run. So go here, I'll run in terminal. And asking for an option 4, right? So let me see what other might happen. You might forget to include the header in the test case or in main. What does this statement do? This statement tells C++ that you're going to use some code that is defined here in .h, in this case menu. So if I do this and then I try to run it, and it's telling me right there that there's an issue, right? But sometimes, like if we're learning, we don't know why it's telling us that. So then you go here, and then again we get all this stuff, and notice here like error. Menu was not declared in this scope. So whenever you see like something was not declared in this scope, then your clue should be, oh, maybe I forgot. Maybe I forgot to include something. And in all our assignments that we do, you need to include something with double quotes. So if you're missing something with double quotes, meaning this piece here, right? Then that means you forgot to include something. And it's always like, if you're like, well, I don't know what to include, you can expand this and then it'll be switch.h, not CPP, it'll be switch.h or something.h, always something.h. You never include anything CPP, okay? So once you include this, then the program should be fine. So you run it. And then the program runs. That the same thing applies here. Like if we purposely exclude switch.h, then anything that deals with menu, so this test case will error out. Like it'll, like the IntelliSense helper or the code helper, it'll tell us that something is wrong right away. It'll try to like help us. So let me see here if it does. If it doesn't, then yeah, as you see right here, it's telling us something. Let me see here. Let's see if this is helpful. Identifier menu is undefined, right? So So then that should be, oh, so it doesn't know what menu is. And I wrote a function for menu. So I need to check if I included the header, and then you include it, right? So then after that it should run. So I'm trying to think of other issues, spelling issues, right? Like C++ is case sensitive, so this is menu and the other is lowercase menu. And let's run it. So I think it'll be okay with the build. So it's kind of giving us false check here. But if we try to run it, then it'll give us a runtime error, meaning like when the program's trying to be built to run, then it's going to give us some error that it doesn't find. Menu was not declared in the scope. Did you mean menu? Well, at least it's trying to help us here. It's like, did you mean lowercase menu or uppercase menu, right? And here it's like telling us like, I have a menu that I see in the header. So is it the lowercase or the uppercase, right? So okay, and then maybe one last example, and then we can start the lecture. One might be like also like misspells here, right? Like remember, it's case sensitive. Say again. Nothing. Okay. Okay, so again, it's always telling us, trying to warn us, right? But sometimes, like, we don't know. We're just learning, right? We don't know why it's the red underline. And we're like, well, okay, I'm gonna try to run it, and maybe it'll still work. But if we scroll down, then it's saying option was not declared, right? So if you see that, then you're like, oh, so maybe I misspelled this. So you have to scroll through your code and fix, right? So I think those are like the most common errors I see. The other ones would be like you just do include IOStream and then you forget to do the namespace configuration. So if you try to run it, I mean, right there is like full of reds, but sometimes we don't know any better and we're just like, well, it's gonna work, right? But then like we get all this kind of output. CR was not declared, CN was not declared. So if that's the case, right, this is like also like string result is not declared, and you might be like, well, he told me that there's a string in C++. Why isn't this stuff working, right? So you always have to make sure that you take care of the namespace resolution for C++. Once you do that, then everything should be fine. Right, so now the program works. So just wanted to make sure that I try to go over like the most common errors I see, like in homework assignments. And I'll upload this video. Like, let me stop this and I'll just start a new recording.